The story of the PlayStation actually starts when Nintendo signed a deal with Sony in 1988 to produce a CD-ROM add-on for the Super Nintendo. The SNES CD was to be announced at the 1991 Consumer Electronics Show. However, Hiroshi Yamauchi, the president of Nintendo at the time, noticed that the original 1988 contract between Sony and Nintendo gave Sony complete control over any and all titles written on the SNES CD format. He decided the contract was unacceptable and secretly canceled all plans for the Nintendo and Sony Super Nintendo CD attachment. So instead of announcing a partnership between Sony and Nintendo at CES 1991, Nintendo chairman Howard Lincoln went on stage and revealed that Nintendo was now working with Philips and that they planned to abandon all work done with Sony. After the collapse of the joint project, Sony considered scrapping their research, but ultimately decided to use what they had developed to make a completely standalone console. As a result, Nintendo filed a lawsuit claiming breach of contract, and attempted to obtain an injunction against the release of the PlayStation. The injunction was denied though, and in 1991, the first incarnation of the Sony PlayStation was revealed. By the end of 1992, Sony and Nintendo reached a deal where the PlayStation would still have a port for SNES games, but Nintendo would own the rights and receive majority of the profits from the game's sales. However, Sony decided in early 1993 to begin reworking the PlayStation to target a new generation of hardware. As part of this process, the SNES cartridge port was dropped, as well as any ties to the Nintendo brand. The PlayStation was launched in Japan on December 3rd, 1994, and in North America on September 9th, 1995, for $299 US. Sony had a very successful launch with titles spanning many different genres, including Battle Arena Toshiden, Twisted Metal, Tekken, Warhawk, Air Combat, Philosoma, and Ridge Racer. The PlayStation was the first console to sell over 100 million units, and sold 102 million by the end of its life cycle. Sony also released a smaller, redesigned version of the PlayStation called the PS1. The PS1 was much smaller than the original PlayStation. It was released on July 7th, 2000 and went on to sell more units than all other consoles that year, including its successor, the PlayStation 2. The success of the PlayStation is widely believed to have influenced the demise of the cartridge-based home console. It was not the first system to utilize the optical disc format, but it was the first to do so successfully. The PlayStation went head-to-head with the last major home console to rely on proprietary cartridges, the Nintendo 64. Also, one of the first mainstream dual analog controllers was the PlayStation's dual analog controller. It was Sony's first attempt at a handheld analog controller for the PlayStation, and the predecessor to the Dualshock controller. The first official analog controller for the PlayStation was the PlayStation Analog Joystick. On March 23, 2006, Sony announced the end of the PlayStation's production. Lasting over 11 years, the PlayStation had one of the longest production runs in video game history. That's it for now, guys. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to Culture Shock Network for more gaming news, facts, and information.